probably want to take it back just a minute and breathe for a second. And now I'm going to say, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you. And welcome to Women Leaders Walk the Talk. I am excited to be here with you all tonight. We haven't seen each other since last year, if you are visiting us again. But we are back and we are ready to continue to bring purpose and the mission forward of Women Leaders Walk the Talk. So it is January 26, 2023. And Women Leaders Walk the Talk is all about putting ideas and recommendations and thoughts and dreams and more into action. So we are not just yapping about what we're doing, but we are leading by example. And so if you have been walking the talk, for those who have joined us, I see we got folks in the room, awesome. For those who are walking the talk, drop it in the chat, put walking the talk in the chat, or put WLWTT, because you are walking the talk. We are not simply being lip service, right? Because we need action to really be effective and create success in the communities we serve and the different areas that we influence as leaders. So with that, I'm going to jump right in because I want to keep us on target and keep us on time. But again, I am Kristen Webb, your chief leadership enthusiast, and others may call me your confidence coach, or maybe even motivational speaker. Somebody may call me that. But however or whatever you choose to call me, just know that I simply love all things leadership. And any opportunity that I can be a part of that or even help curate the process to further the leadership, I'm going to do that. And so that's what I'm doing tonight. So the Grady Leadership Series was created just to simply be able to hone in on different ways to service leadership. And we created the Women Leaders Walk the Talk panel discussion. And since 2020, we have branched off to an online Facebook environment with more than 700 community members who I know are tapped in tonight. And we've even started on Instagram. And yes, we are on IG now. So you can now go to IG and engage with us. So head over there right now if you haven't already, to Facebook or Instagram. But we've also branched off into annual conferences, meetups, and other special events. So there is always something happening when Leaders Walk the Talk, and we want to keep you engaged. So I am going to make sure that we have everyone on screen. It looks like now I have all of the lovely panelists for this evening. Want to make sure I change my speaker view. So let me tell you this. Although I am trying to do something with Women Leaders Walk the Talk, I know that all of this is done to help women leaders, but I can't do it by myself, right? I know that's why when I think of Women Leaders Walk the Talk, I want to make sure that I am bringing on some pretty dope women leaders onto this platform to share their voices. And all of this is done, again, to help women leaders lend their voice to more audiences. Why? Because every voice matters. Every voice can impact and create pathways for strategies and success to take place. Why? Because women leaders' voices help shape change, help shape possibilities and the realities. And why else? Because the playing field is still uneven, all right? If I want to, these are bold discussions that we're having, right? So the playing field is still uneven. So how can we help elevate, amplify, and create intentional and passive equitableness for women in leadership? And so this platform strives to do that. And because I can't do it by myself, I said I have to bring on dope women leaders in their respective spaces so that we can hear your voices and your perspectives and your expertise. And we want to hear more about the lanes that you are in as we walk our journeys of leadership. So tonight is no different. I introduced to some and reintroduced to others our experts for tonight. And they are experts in an array of areas, but we're going to focus in on their expertise tonight in human resources and career development. So hello to Terry Walthor with University of West Georgia. Hello, and thank you for joining us, Terry. We have
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Thank
so
you
glad.
for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you're here with us. We have Carlene Dennis with Relativity. Hello, Carlene.
Good evening. Happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
And lastly, but not least, and a special shout out to Alex tonight. If you are in the city of Memphis, keep us in your prayers over the course of the next days and weeks. But as I introduce Alex, please keep Alex on the top of that list. And thank you for being here with us tonight, Alex Smith.
Hello, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk about one of my favorite topics, leadership.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So hello to all the leaders that are in the room tonight. Feel free to engage with us. Drop your questions that you have or your comments. We want to see your amens. We want to see your emojis, all of your reactions. We want you to engage with us tonight. So hello to you all, and thank you to our panel for joining us, and to our attendees tonight. Thank you all for being willing and saying yes to show up, because you could have been anywhere else. So we're seriously in for a treat tonight. When I was planning the theme of the year, it dawned on me that at the top of the year, most are planning or thinking about their resolutions. Did you see my quote unquote? They're thinking about their resolutions or their goals or even their loose plans of execution. I think that may be a better description sometimes, right? But drop it in the chat if you have defined a resolution this year, or maybe a goal, or maybe even that loose plan of execution that we talked about. Maybe you all are doing that. And you may have even dreamt of something or had a new idea or recurring idea come up. But when I think about resolutions and goals, I had this aha moment that many people use the new year as a line of new opportunity for our careers and our employment. And you may be searching for a promotion or a new company to work for, or maybe you're simply trying to professionally develop yourself in your current role to be more effective. Well, I want to let you know that tonight, all those thoughts landed me with HR and career development. Thus, why we have the team that we have on board tonight. So keep these things in mind as we move through the discussion tonight, because human resources covers an array of areas, right? It's compensation, it's training and development, it's benefits and insurance, it's equal opportunity compliance, it's generalist work, the recruiting piece, and so much more. And somehow in this short period, we've got about 45 minutes left together. We're going to touch on all of them. Okay, believe it or not, we're going to somehow touch on every area of HR. So a few statistics to wrap our minds around before I get ready to shut up. Drop it in the chat, wrap your mind around this. Just 29% of senior leadership in the world are held by women. It's a very small number. 29% of senior leadership in the world are held by women. All right, 74.2% of HR practitioners at the manager level are female, right? That's a huge difference when we talk about 29% being in senior leadership, and then even just at the manager level, 74.2% are female. And if you compare that to like marketing or IT, they still are much, much higher in rate as far as women being in leadership roles or being at that manager level. And the numbers, they do dwindle down as we get higher into the HR level, but that's still just a good number to kind of keep your head around. But surprisingly, that number is surprising to me. When I found out 74.2%, I was like, oh, wow, that's pretty neat that there truly is an awesome influence of women in HR. But that does not mean that the work for continuity has ended, right? Or increased, right? We want to make that 74, I don't know, let's make it 80, right? They'll catch up. But it also, it's the leadership role that's predominantly female that we want to work on. So let's jump right in. My first question, it's a staple for us at Women Leaders Walk the Talk, and the panelists don't know this one unless they've watched the previous. But in one word or phrase, if you had to describe leadership, what would it be? Don't think too hard.
Yeah, I'll take that. I would say servitude. For me, the key to being a really great leader is truly being a servant to your organization, to your team, and being in a position to make sure that your team has what they need to be successful.
I like it. Servitude. Absolutely.
For me,
Carlene, Terry,
the first word that comes to mind for me is empowerment. As a leader, if I'm not empowering my team to be better, to do better, to pursue their dreams and goals and enabling them to do that, I'm not being the leader that they need. So that resonated with me when you said that. That was the first word that came to mind. I
love it. Empowerment, servitude. What are we rounding it out, Terry?
Definitely intentionality. It takes in HR, it takes a village. You're the counselor, you're the mediator, you're a lot of things within an 8-hour day. So being intentional around how you lead and who you lead, and connecting with your people is really key.
I love it. And thank y'all for sharing your one word or your phrase. And I always start every session off with that, because that typically becomes the resounding message that we'll hear. And just to know that that's your perspective going in just makes it all make sense even more. So were you called into a leadership role, or did you pursue a leadership role?
I would say I was called. I wasn't even, HR wasn't even really on my radar. I was going to school for nursing, and things didn't quite work out in the lab. And so I ended up doing an internship in a HR department in a hospital. So I would say, as my career progressed, of course, you want to level up, right? After, 2 or 3 years, I'm a proponent of every 3 years, I should be either elevating in my current role, doing something new, or I need to consider, what's next. And so that's really kind of where the progression kind of came into play. You're always looking for what is the next new thing, or what's the next way for me to level up in my career.
I like it. So we leveling up. That's how we walk into our leadership role. I like it.
I would say for me, a little bit of both. So I have always felt like I've been a leader on a personal level, as a child in high school and college, but on a professional level, probably later in my career, as in like where I am now. I've become a leader in the last 5 years. And so I've always been interested in organizing and collaborating and galvanizing people around a mission and a vision, just personally and professionally. So I would say it is always something that I have wanted to achieve. And so now I'm there. And so I'm always kind of trying to figure out how I can cultivate myself and, be a better leader. So I would say a little bit of both.
Mm.
And so what and I would add to that. So what I would say is that many times when you say leader, people almost instantly think about positional leadership, being a leader based on title. But I would argue that all of us are called to leadership at different points in time in our lives based on what's going on. And leadership is really about having a vision and understanding about the direction in which something should go. And you're able to help lead people through that. So whether that's leadership through a project, leadership through a volunteer activity, leadership through your organization, there are different ways you can be called to leadership. And so for me personally, it's definitely been a calling where even in high school, even in college, whether it was with the Black Student Union or it was with a nonprofit board or in an actual position in an organization, I felt that need of, oh no, I have an idea, I have a vision for where we should go. I'm going to put my name in the hat for this because I have a perspective about what comes next. So I think genuinely you are called for it.
I love it. So it can be a blend, but I think the point I really liked is it depends on where you are in your life, right? Because we are multidimensional. Seasons come and seasons go. So maybe you're not always, volunteering. Maybe it is just you're being pulled. That force of your leadership is being pulled into a space to be executed. So I love it. When you think about the realm of HR or just women in leadership in general, and you may not like this question, I think this is always a hard question to answer. Who is a woman? You can give us 2 or 3, but who is a woman leader that you hope to embody in your leadership style? I know it's a hard one. I'm like, you want me to narrow that down to what? You want me to go with just one?
So,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, sure. I have always been a fan of Oprah Winfrey, and from my days as a little girl, watching her talk show, and this idea of being disruptive to the industry and changing the way that a leadership or branding or marketing or the way things can be done. And leading in that way, I have always found fascinating. And she whether it's giving away cars, in the middle of her audience, or, being on the cover of her own magazine, every month, to starting her own book club and all these different things, not being afraid to push the needle and not being held to a standard of saying that you're limited because you are a Black woman, that you cannot go into certain territories or certain industries. I just absolutely adore that about her.
Yeah, I would have to. I'm over here really grinning ear to ear because she's at the top of my list too, right? Like I'm really, I do these because I feel like I'm Oprah, just for the record. I feel like I'm Oprah. That's why I do Women Leaders Walk the Talk. But, she definitely is a powerful woman. Absolutely. Thank you for that one. All right. What we got, Terry, Carlin, what we got?
So this one is sort of a wild card because she's, clearly not in HR, but I have always liked Bozoma St. John because, and some you may know of her as Badass Boss. She is like the top marketing guru, and she has really, what I like is that she just blazes her own path. If it's not working, she's always exploring how she can impact in a different way and in a different space and with different populations. And she just really owns the space that she's in, but always exhibits a spirit of community too. And so I just like her boldness, but coupled with community. And I think it's a very unique combination to be able to shine in that way.
She is bad. I.e. what her name means. She is bad. That's a good one.
She is phenomenal.
She is.
Like when
there she is.
I think about that question, I think of a leader who really helped change the trajectory of my career. And she helped change the trajectory because we started the position at the same time. And so literally, she was my director. I started, I was a frontline individual contributor. We experienced a major flood in Nashville. And literally in that moment, I learned a lot about myself. We learned a lot about each other. And she taught me so much about how to manage in crisis, how to deal with executives, how to push through, right, when you have those challenging moments, and in a sense of community, because you typically, when you have a crisis, it's all hands on deck. And so she probably was one of the more influential people in my career. So when I think about that question, I think about that in a more personal nature.
Awesome. And I can appreciate that question, because so often when we're talking about being leaders, we may or may not be tapped into why we lead the way we lead. But a lot of times it's from those examples of those people that have really resonated with us and left an impression, and we find those qualities that we want to carry on. And so sometimes we just need to remember who it is that we are trying to follow their trail, right? Or follow the blaze that they've created for us, and how we embody it. So I think that's important when we talk about leadership. So let's get into what works and what doesn't work. All right, we're going to help the people out. Tonight. What would you say may be the biggest mistake or misstep that women leaders make when it comes to career development?
So I would say what I've seen is, and even I've had this question, is you overanalyze the job description and make an assumption that you're not qualified to do something, and don't even put your name in the hat or for consideration for an opportunity. Or you automatically assume, oh, so-and-so is going to get this job. So you don't even try to express your interest in it. When I look at my male counterparts, they don't care if they only meet one thing in the requirements section. They will put their best foot forward for something. And I think sometimes women, we overly critique whether or not we're qualified, and we I think sometimes can over-index on feeling like imposters in our roles. And I would tell everyone, hey, that's just fear.
Yeah.
But the only way you know for sure you didn't get a job is if you don't even if you don't try. So at least try.
Absolutely. That is a good one. Over analyzing those job descriptions. So put it in. It doesn't matter. Alex said, press submit. Press submit, and it is going to be what it's going to be following that. But at least you did that part. No regrets. I love it. What about you, Parlene or Terry?
I would say having a real clear picture of who we are, and having a voice, right? I think that's so important. When you think about your career path and your interests, and just having some real awareness about what you are really good at and where you need and what you're not, right? And so taking the steps to kind of figure out how you can hone those areas that you need to improve upon has really been helpful for me, because I'm very clear about what I enjoy, what I do well, and then I'm also very clear on and acknowledging that too, what I need to work on, what I improve. And so I think that is very important in your career trajectory.
And self-awareness. That's our pillar number one at the Great Youth Leadership Series. So I love it. That self-awareness is key throughout, every decision you make. Where are you grounded in and knowing of yourself before you move forward? But I will just point out, while you're doing all that self-awareness, still go ahead and press submit on that application submission. While you're trying to figure it out, go ahead and press submit. All right, Terry.
I would say two things. First thing is make a plan. I think a lot of times we're so busy being all things for everybody else that we really don't carve out that time to really be intentional about where we want to go and how do we get there. And second, I always say, just be ready, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. So if you're not necessarily in that space, start taking baby steps to prepare yourself for when that right opportunity comes along. So you're ready to go after it. And like you said, and press submit, don't be afraid. And make sure that you're kind of sticking to a plan, and a pivot with the plan if you need to, but a plan is key.
Ooh, I like that, being agile, but still having direction set. I love it. And for the folks in the chat, you all feel free to drop your answers in as we go through the questions too. So if you know of a big mistake or maybe missteps that can be avoided, or just kind of tuned in more to, drop that in there. So my next question is, we talked about what we're doing wrong, right? But I know there are some strategies that have been effective that maybe from a some kind of mass perspective, women typically do in their career development. So what are some of the best strategies, one or two, however many you want to share, best strategies women leaders use when it comes to their career development?
So I'll jump in on this one. Learn the art of self-promotion. Men do that so well. They don't have any problem telling you what they're good at and why, and all in all their glory, right? So
Right.
I think as women, we have to get really comfortable and confident in sharing who we are, what we've done, and why we're important and integral to the success of the organization. And I always say, do people know you? What do people know you for, and what is their experience of you? And so in that self-promotion, personal brand is kind of part of that discussion too. And so really having a strong personal brand, so that you can gain access to folks, to those relationships and opportunities through that. So I would absolutely say, having a personal brand and self-promoting, respectful self-promotion, but absolutely it is needed.
Respectful. I love that, because what I wrote down first was there's an art to it. I heard what you said initially. There's an art to it. There's a fine line. There's a savvy way to execute it. But no, thank you for that. The art of self-promotion, not being scared to do it.
And I just want to add to that, know your truth. So I think the art of being able to brand effectively and the art of being able to advocate for yourself is, your numbers, what you've done, your truth. So no one can say something about you that you can't truly be able to validate yourself and be able to speak to. So understand your data. Did you move the needle? Did you save the company money? Did you increase revenue growth? Did you increase numbers? Did you hire a certain number of people? Did you change the time to fill metric? Do you know your metrics? All of those things help you in being able to effectively tell your story and be able to do it with confidence. And so knowing your truth is really effective.
And I just want to, and I don't mean Terry, I'm about to come to you, but I just want to say, in knowing your data, that means you got to track it all the time, right? Don't wait until it's time to submit. Like, always be documenting what your accomplishments are. That way it's easy to catch up. So you can do that pitch real quick because you just notated it, 2 hours ago. So definitely to that, I love it. Make sure that you are ready to speak to your strengths in that data, and you got to know it. Yeah. What about you, Terry?
No, they made some really, really good points, ladies. I would add, though, the thing that we tend to forget is be relational. Just, remembering that every contact that you have with someone is a potential opportunity. What are people saying about you when you're not in the room? How have you shown up, in your role, not just to self-promote, but how have you shown up in your role for other people? And I think that goes to what Alexandria said about servant leadership. Because those are always, where the opportunities come from, individuals that want to speak for you, want to sponsor you, who engage with you. Being relatable will take you a long way.
I love it. Relatability, absolutely. Because people want to feel connected to you. If they don't, it makes it harder for you to climb wherever you're trying to get. So let's get into, I'm sorry, Alex, you about to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think so the part about relational is knowing where you have your alliances. So I do think that understanding where you have some possible relationships or alliances that work to further your goals is important. But also recognize not everybody's gonna like you, and you gotta be okay with that too.
Take me out,
right?
Take me out, Alex.
Not everybody gonna, when you get to this level. When you get to this level, you're going to have people that are going to be fans, and you're going to have people who will not be fans. And you got to be okay with that too. Because every leadership role, no matter the great things that they've accomplished, there's always a group of people that may disagree with the policies or the politics or et cetera. And so being comfortable with not being liked, but yet comfortable with understanding that you're doing the right thing, and that what you're doing is going to make a difference. That matters.
I think you just told my life story from like the last year, Alex. Thank you for that. You really want to make sure that you're standing in your truth and be okay to use that voice. And if you can back it up with your data, just do it. I love it. I love it. Oh, this is great. I couldn't have created this in my head if I wanted to. All right. So training, development, and generalists. Let's kind of talk about that. Give us your 2 best tips on interviewing or resume build. 2 good tips.
Well, prepare for the interview and know who you're interviewing with. Don't just come to the interview and because you're interviewing them, because is this, to see if this is where you actually would want to join. So it's a 2-way street. And I think, people get in their minds and in their head and they're completely focused on, well, how am I going to answer the questions? But it really is about engaging in conversation about a potential opportunity and working relationship that you might be considering. And the second piece, as I said, is prepare. Preparation is being outcome driven in your answers, outcome driven on your resume. Gone is the day with an objective and bullet points that list tasks. Most people are looking for self-starters, and they're looking for, where did you make impact and how did you, make that impact? And so making sure that your resume is outcome focused, with metrics, data, numbers, what percentage did you reduce this particular thing, goes a long way, and be able to tell the story that complements that as well.
That's your homework for tonight. I love it. Go pull out those resumes.
And I would add to what Terry said. She talked about, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Always keep your resume up to date. Make it a point to tap into that resume a couple of times a year, or even on a quarterly basis. Continually add your experiences, your accomplishments. You talked about tracking and documentation. We do that in the job, but we owe it to ourselves to do it personally from the resume perspective, so that whenever you're in the position or, you're presented with an opportunity, you may have to do a small tweak, nothing, where you have to kind of, go into this mode of like, let me find somebody to do my resume, or you panic, right? So if you are continually focused on updating it, you would be in a good position. Secondly, I would say, kind of along the same lines of Alex was saying about applying to the job, don't be afraid to ask about compensation up front. We are in a new space of employee advocacy, and employees are out here advocating for themselves, whether it's hybrid work arrangements, or flexible work arrangements, as well as money. And people are asking for premium pay, and it is very important to kind of understand what the compensation is, whether or not you want to go forward in the process based on that. What are the budgetary constraints, so as to not waste anyone's time. And so I'm very clear about that. And people need to step into the process with that same level of confidence, and that same level of gravitas about being intentional about the opportunities and what is going to be advantageous for me. So I would add those two things.
Those are good. Those are good.
I completely agree with that. I mean, so certainly know what you want and be clear about what you want going into the interview. Know your story. And my favorite technique that I learned in grad school that has never failed me in the interview process is the STAR method. So for every story you have in your career, you should know the situation, task, action, and result. And if you write those down for at least 5 stories, generally you can almost answer any behavioral-based interview question. So the STAR method is a surefire way to prepare for an interview. And then on your resume, data matters, being able to show your impact. So yes, I reduced costs by 15%. Yes, I increased recruiting by 400%. Yes, I hired over 500 people in 1 year. Yes, I delivered succession planning for 100 plus leaders. You should be able to have those clear numbers on your resume. I see the resume is like a billboard, right? It's what's going to attract me to want to talk to you. So make your billboard attractive with numbers that are interesting to me, that's going to help me solve problems. Because at this point, employers are looking for problem solvers. We're not looking for people to just do tasks. We're looking for people who can help us solve really hard, complex problems.
I love it. I love it. These were all really good. I won't even show y'all my notepad, but I'm not in the market, but when I get ready, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready. Those were really, really good takeaways, practical, realistic, and from the expert. Each of you do this, or have done it, depending on where you are in the process of the HR right now. But you're overseeing it, and you know what you're talking about. So please, to my audience, if y'all didn't hear those nuggets, go back and watch it when this is over. Go back and watch the replay. Absolutely. So here's one, and we're getting close to time, but I definitely wanted to touch on this, and then we're going to have a little fun after this one. But if a woman suspects that she may be a victim of discrimination because of being a woman, what are the high-level steps? We won't get into the nitty-gritty, but what are the high-level steps that she should take for it to be addressed? I know that's not no. That was a sticky one.
Well, I'll start off because I am kind of in higher ed, and higher ed can be nuanced, especially if it's a public institution versus a private. So our Title IX office definitely kind of takes the lead on that. A lot of times my office works closely with our Office of Legal Affairs. And so if they come to HR first, we definitely do intake. And we support our Title IX officer with the investigative piece. And then we just kind of, once we get into the dynamics, we kind of determine, if it really is suspected discrimination. And if it's not, then it may get punted back to my office to finish out the investigation. But if it is, that Title IX office will pretty much see it through. And then my office will partner with them on recommendations, action, and what we need to do as an employer to address it right away.
So I'm hearing identify the appropriate office.
Yes.
And understanding the legislation. Yeah, understand the legislation. And I know that can feel hard to do, especially when you're in the midst, but I'm gonna shut up. Alex look like, let me jump. Go ahead, Alex.
So I think the first is read the company policies. So I think you want to understand what the company policy says, and typically companies do spell out what the complaint procedure is for the organization. Especially if it's a mid to large size organization, they should have something spelled out. So I think understand the company policy and follow that. Usually the first point of contact is going to be the supervisor. However, if the supervisor or manager is the one that is actually doing the harassing, then it's going either to the HR partner for your group, or to a skip level to a more senior level leader, and making a complaint there. And then if you are in certain organizations, they have a employee relations office, or in our case, we have an equity, diversity, and inclusion office where you can actually submit a formal complaint in that way as well. So there are usually a number of different ways that you could approach it, whether it's through your management chain or HR. But either way, the organization has a duty to investigate once that complaint comes forward. So either path that you choose, whether it's HR or through management, they do have a duty to look into it.
Awesome.
And the only I would add, because I'm very clear about staying in my lane. And this is more, in Alex and Terry's lane, because I'm more talent acquisition focused. But what I would say is, from my many years of experience, is document. So if you feel like, you're encountering that type of situation, absolutely document. Secondary to that, I would say is sometimes when you're engaging in that kind of situation, or the mental health aspect is lost sometimes. So seek some professional help if you need to help you kind of process and manage through a situation like that. So those would be the two things that I would inject into this discussion.
That's really, really good. And I told you I wanted to touch everything about HR tonight, right? Even equal opportunity or those instances, because it's real, right? Discrimination, whether woman or man, exists. And that's why you have those offices and rules and guidelines and policies, be it at the state, federal level, or even just locally or organizationally. So thank y'all for addressing that and handling it with care. And thank you for providing some guidance. So if anyone is experiencing, or maybe in the future, if you do, tap back into this live right here and kind of follow the guidance that was given. So moving the needle forward, one of the most rewarding parts of leadership is being able to foster change, right? It's a very good experience to be able to create sustainability and help impact people's professional dreams and lives in our ways with being in leadership. So especially when we can change legislation. I work in government, so I embrace wholeheartedly the importance of legislation and how it really dictates the freedoms that we have and the opportunities that we get. So here's a good one for you, maybe not. If you can meet with our current president, Joe Biden, to create legislation around how to level the playing field for leadership roles among men and women, specifically in HR, we can go specific to HR if you want, or take it where you want. What would be your recommendation? You and Joe, y'all sit down talking. What are you and Joe talking about over coffee?
I am so ready for this question. I actually submitted something to NBC News about this during the pandemic. I am so bullish about either discounted daycare or some sort of free daycare options for working parents. I think that that's one of the biggest barriers we have to employment, especially for the hard to employ, is having access to quality daycare from 6 weeks on, and being able to offer as many options as possible. Not only for the parents to be able to have an option for their children so that they can work, but secondly, so that the children start to get access to good quality fundamentals around education, which sets them up to be able to read by third grade, which all the research shows if a child can read by third grade, they will likely graduate from high school. And of course, the statistics once you graduate from high school and being able to go into secondary education. So that early education is so important. And when we look at other European countries, the fact that they have a either a fully discounted or paid for early childhood system, it really does help make a difference in the overall educational attainment and employment attainment for the country. So that's exactly what I would talk to them about.
I love it. I needed you 15 years ago because those daycare bills, she's 15 now. I thank them. I thank them that we've gotten past it. But you're absolutely true. That's a true statement. It's a hindrance sometimes in being able to navigate and balance. Yes, I need to work so I can take care of my family, but I need to be able to put my family somewhere or my children somewhere affordably so that I can get done what I need to do. I've been lucky enough to have employers that allowed me to maybe bring my child to work some days, right? But that's not always an option. So I appreciate you when you sit down with Joe and have that conversation, Alex. What about you, Carlene and Terry? What are y'all talking to Joe about?
So I would, so I work for an international company now, and similar to, what Alex mentioned, European culture, we have a big representation in Poland, Krakow, and so I work very, very closely with my partner there. I think in the US, companies are a little bit more attuned to time off. However, we see in European cultures, there's just, they're more supportive of more time off, right? I mean, there's just whole sentiment in America. It's like we work. And we are starting to see, I think, culturally, companies shift towards more time off or being more open to more flexible policies as it relates to that. Like we have a limited time off, but definitely like mandating for requesting legally mandated time off, right? So whether that's 4 weeks, but just kind of starting with something that gives folks a little bit more comfort about being able to take the time off, because we've been in a pandemic, and it's a mental pull, it's a physical pull, it's a financial pull. And so just having the space to take the time off and not feel guilty about that, and know that you can return to work, because we feel that sometimes as women, know that you can return to work, and the work will be there, and there won't be any repercussions for that, right? For taking time off. So that's what I would advocate for, legally mandated time off.
All right, I'm gonna get you in front of Joe. I'm gonna use my plug some kind of way. We're gonna get you and Alex there. What about Terry? Are we gonna take you? Are we gonna set your arrangements up?
Yes. So I'm piggybacking on what the other two ladies said. So we recently got the paid parental leave, right? I think I need him to level up with the paid FMLA leave, because we encounter so many employees that are having a serious medical condition or whatever the situation is, and they don't have enough sick time. And so, their job is protected, but, how are they going to continue their insurance premiums and things like that? So I think go ahead and add the paid FMLA too, and raise this minimum wage. It's a thing. And I think in America, it's just hard to live, period. And so when you talk about people making, less than $15 an hour, and it's just, it's almost inhumane that people are still, trying to figure out how to thrive, and not from a phased approach. I feel like just hit the button, Congress, just press go, figure out an amount where people, can thrive. It's a huge thing, and they seem to keep putting it off and passing the buck and going back and forth, and we're still not there yet.
We're going to put you in the conversation too. I hear some strategy and some real plans coming out of this. Carly and Tiffany said yes, because maternity leave over there is 1 year paid. So she said, bring that over here, Carly. And I love that we did get that international perspective, and you actually having that engagement in that space. So it's not, just a local focus that we're doing, or just nationally. So I think that brings us all to our seriousness for tonight. So we're going to let our hair down. Y'all see my hair flowing down my back. We're going to let our hair down and have a little fun right quick. I like to play this or that. So I'm going to say this or that, and you tell me which one that you're going for. All right. So show up to the interview in a bright yellow pantsuit or an all gray dress suit.
All gray.
I'm going with gray.
Me as well.
All right. I mean, you know, and I'm throwing this out there, so I hope y'all are listening in the chat. Okay, we're not gonna go with the yellow pantsuit, not for the interview. Okay, it might be good.
Well, except if I'm going to come work for like, I don't know, Gucci or something, you know, like a luxury
Right.
brand where
Mhm.
that could be appreciated.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
Maybe.
It's about
Marketing.
making it relevant, knowing your audience, right?
Yes.
But what you say earlier, Terry, know where you're going, know about your company that you're going to be interviewing with. So absolutely. So let that be in.
Absolutely. Do your research.
Ooh, all right. So post-interview thank you card or post-interview silence. So do I send a thank you card or do I just sit back and wait and find out did I get the job or not?
I'm still old school. I still do thank yous.
At least a thank you email.
Yeah.
Yes, I would agree.
Carlia.
So I'm
She's like, I'm stuck.
because I recruit all the time. It is absolutely a great gesture. Is it a requirement? Absolutely not.
Correct,
you know,
correct.
if
Not
you
a
are-
requirement.
if you are the candidate, we will hire you. And I promise you, and I just want people to know, we are not thinking about whether or not you send us a thank you note. I just want to be clear about that. So that's why I was like, I'm torn because I know people feel compelled to do that, but it is, you know, it's a nice gesture. I mean, email is fine. I've even gotten nice written notes, but
wow.
I read them and
It goes to file, file, whatever. I'm not even gonna name the file, but it goes to a file.
right.
Sometimes, understood, yeah. Because
Yeah.
it is a nice gesture, you know, it does set a certain impression,
It does.
but it won't necessarily be the line between you getting the job or not. That's what y'all
That
saying.
is correct.
All right, 2-page resume or 5-page resume?
2.
It depends on the level of position.
Okay.
If you are a CEO, if I'm doing a CEO search, I expect that resume gonna be 5. Because if it's not 5, I'm gonna have some serious questions.
Right. It depends on what you're being a CEO of, right? Right. Exactly. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So clearly in higher ed, you know, on the faculty side, those CVs are novels. Okay. But I agree with Alex. I think if it's an executive position, I still think no more than 3. You need to be able to tell your story, in my opinion, and because I'm clearly we're not going beyond page 3. That's just a real thing. I think if you don't have a whole lot of experience, you know, you definitely want to keep it under 2, but you want to make sure that is what a peeve I find is you're applying for one job, but you're listing all of this experience that's related to a job from 10 years ago. And so not paying attention to detail and not, again, preparing for the role that you're seeking.
Okay, so it sounds like we're closer to the 2-page resume side. What about you, Carlene?
And I would add, I work in tech. So for us, less is more. Like, we don't care about all that flowery, verbose bullets. You know, we want to know what you did, what programming languages you know, and what impact you made. Period, point blank. So that's why I kind of defer to because mainly it's a lot of frontline. That's the heavy lift in our organization in terms of recruiting. But absolutely, the appropriate resume for the appropriate level for the appropriate audience.
I love it. All right. So then I started scouring the internet. I'm like, what kind of movie has something to do with HR theme? It's a hard one to find, first of all. But I came up with 2. Okay. Remember the Titans or The Intern?
I haven't seen The Intern.
Well, so we're gonna go.
I'm gonna go with The Intern.
The Intern, I think, you know, so The Intern is from what I recall, with Robert De Niro. Yeah. You know, good diversity story, right? And the idea that you can have peer mentoring, and peer mentoring can occur at any level and regardless of age, and the cross-pollination. So I think that I'll tell you another really good HR one. Devil Wears Prada is a great.
That is a really good one. I don't know why I didn't think of that. You were right though.
That is so many good HR lessons in that movie. I mean, everything from, you know, mentorship, boss sabotage, organizational politics, industry, culture.
Yeah.
Right, her having to fit into the culture of being in the fashion industry, not being
Learning
effective
self.
because she didn't understand the culture. Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
mean, a lot of good things there.
Oh yeah. Now I gotta
That's a
go
classic.
back and watch it from a whole new lens. Like that was good. Devil Wears Prada. That you're right. It's a great one. Great one. All right. Last, this or that. Lunch break or no lunch break?
I'm guilty of both, but you really do need a lunch break, even if it's just to take a walk. I'm working to do better.
There you go. There you go.
Agreed.
Lunch break or no lunch break?
Lunch, typically, well, I work from home mostly, but sometimes it's lunch break mostly, or lunch at my desk. So it's a lunch, but it's an abbreviated version of a lunch, right? Because I'm not 100% disconnecting, but I am connecting with my food.
Right.
So for me, it's kind of lunch meeting. So it's usually we brought in food, or I brought my food, and we're meeting and eating lunch at the same time. So yeah, which is not great. I agree. You know, having appropriate rest breaks is good. That's one of my struggles, is that sometimes my calendar gets so back to back that I don't even have time to go to the bathroom. I have to like force myself to be late to a meeting so I can go to the bathroom. So I think, but making sure that you are reasonable with yourself to schedule appropriate time for appropriate kind of rest in between is important.
So it sounds like we know to take a lunch break, and we all working on it, because I'm working on it too. Like I'm terrible at it. I have to intentionally, and I put it in the group all the time. I'll say, I don't know who needs to hear this, but it's time to take a lunch break. It's time to push away from the desk. And we're just trying to, continue our excellence, right? But we have to remember we need our own personal time. So I love that. All right. So we have gotten to 7:56. I'm so excited. This has been so great for the first Women Leaders Walk the Talk for 2023. So I want to say thank you to our panelists, Terry and Carlin and Alex. Thank you all so much for joining tonight. My plate is for real running over. And I don't just say that. I seriously am very full and appreciate all that I've learned tonight. So much of it was reinforcement. But some of it was like, man, I didn't even think about that. I need to integrate that into the way I try to develop my career or just my professional development. So, but I'm glad each of you offered your insight tonight. Thank you to our viewers tonight. And for those who are going to check it out tomorrow, I'm already telling you, thank you when you come back and watch the replay. And thank you to the Grady Youth Leadership team to help market, construct the night, and even more. And I always say I cannot do it alone. I'm learning more and more to make sure that I'm pulling people alongside of me to continue doing this work that I feel like is mission work, to keep trying to just move the needle for women leaders and support the idea that leadership is so critical to us. So a couple notes for everybody. Come back and watch the playback. It's going to be on the Grady Youth Leadership website, as well as it's going to be uploaded to YouTube. The Greater Youth Leadership website is www.thegreateryouthleadership.com. Stay tuned for our next Women Leaders Walk the Talk panel discussions. Hopefully it'll be in March. We do this every other month. If you haven't already, join our Facebook and our IG pages and our community. Share, and then connect with us online for future services around leadership training and consulting. And as I always like to say, before we depart, remember, let's lead. Thank you all so much tonight. Y'all have a great one.